Hi, welcome back to Piece It Together ABA. Today we are going to be talking all about visuals. I'm going to focus on one type of visual specifically, and the next few videos will dive a little bit deeper into that. Before we talk any further about how visual supports help our learners, I want you to think about your own daily life. We rely on visuals to navigate through our day, even when we don't realize that we are doing so. Think about parking signs, traffic and road signs, warning signs, logos on foods or drinks or items or toys, hospital signs, just really to name a few. These visuals really help provide us with clear and predictable directions in familiar and unfamiliar situations. So when I talk about the importance of using visuals with our learners, I want you to think about when you're delivering a direction, how many steps go into comprehending that direction. All day long, when we're giving our children directions, or as educators, we're talking to our students, as parents, we're talking to our children. Processing language is a really, really dynamic skill, and comprehending that language is a whole nother skill set on its own. So using pictures to help our learners understand what we're trying to get them to do is really, really beneficial because it's way more concrete. So what we're going to talk about today is called a first then visual. This might be familiar to some of you, it might not. First then visual board is what it's typically referred to as. The fancy term for this is called the Premack Principle, and that is what you might see in a report or written into programming, written into an IEP. You might hear that through videos. A more friendly term and one that's easier to remember is Grandma's Law. So it's first eat your carrots, then you can have dessert. I always chuckle because I think of my own mother with my daughter, and she could probably con her into dessert before the carrots, but that's besides the point. So first then visuals are a way to use a more preferred task to complete a less preferred task. As you can see here, I might be in the heat of potty training my own toddler. So candy is obviously a much more motivating activity than using the potty. But I find that first then visual boards are the easiest and most user-friendly when you're starting to use visuals, introducing visuals to learners, or really trying to learn how to use them on your own. They're not as involved as a full visual schedule. It breaks it down into much smaller chunks, especially for our younger learners. And I'm just a fan of these boards because they can really be accommodated for all age groups and all skill levels, which is always a bonus. So for younger learners, these might be used to motivate them to do something as small as trying a bite of something new, which we know in our world is not a small thing at all. But I'm just talking in comparison to something that might reflect a larger amount of time. So say you want to improve your child's diet, or you would like them to start trying new foods. Maybe they have some texture issues with cold or warm foods, and they prefer just crunchy foods. For example, my daughter loves goldfish. So say you want to have your child try something new. The way you'd set it up is, okay, first strawberries, then goldfish. So the idea behind it is this is always, well, typically, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time, this is definitely going to be more motivating than this. So the important thing is that, especially when working with younger learners, that access to this is granted pretty immediately after this is completed. So I know sometimes that's not going to be super realistic. Like if you're going to the doctor's office, you might say first doctor, then playground, or whatever that preferred activity would be. Now, even though the child is not getting immediate access. It's not, 5 seconds at the doctor and right to the playground, like a quick bite of strawberries. Using this while you're at the doctor's office as a visual reminder that, hey, we're going here, I promise. First, we have to do this. It's a great reminder, and it's something that you don't always have to be verbalizing. If your child is upset, hey, don't forget, once this is done, we're gonna go here. Now, this takes some learning, which is why it's so important when you're using this to make sure, no matter how hard it might be to do what you got to do first, please, the best you can, make sure they always get access to the then, because that's kind of how our learners learn the process of, oh, hey, I did what I was supposed to do, and now I'm getting reinforced for it. You can really fill these in with anything. Let's talk maybe a little more academic. Reading might be something that's aversive for some kids. I know with my history as a teacher in self-contained, reading was not always a preferred activity. So you might set it up like this. Okay, first we're gonna read a book, then you can have bubbles. So it's just always thinking, okay, how can I motivate my child to do A by using B? For older learners, you might be looking at a larger span of time. So it might be first homework, then video games. Now, we know homework isn't going to be done as quickly as taking a bite of something new, but that's okay. Like I said, as our learners grow, sometimes, we've worked on that, increasing the time span, increasing focus. So these just kind of serve a little more as a visual reminder and don't require such immediacy, which is great and shows that your learner has made a lot of growth. Sometimes these can also be helpful for introducing challenging tasks. Like I was saying earlier with the potty training, that's not really a preferred task for a young child. And challenging, because there's a lot of steps. So using these to introduce a challenging task is really helpful because the preferred task is always visually available. And obviously you can always have the real thing there too, but sometimes you don't, and maybe you don't want to have candy right in the bathroom. This is just one example. Obviously, there are many, many examples of what you can use these boards for. And you can pretty much find picture icons all over the place. A lot of them are referred to as PECs for those of you who are unfamiliar with that. It's a picture exchange communication. And that's what these pictures are, where you have the words and the pictures. Again, having both, great for building functional language. So don't ever shy away. Don't ever think, oh, my learner's too young to have words. It's always really smart to have both. Again, it's up to you what you're most comfortable with, but I have found in the past that especially when building functional communication, having both is fantastic, because as your learners grow, sometimes you can transition to just using words instead of pictures, kind of building onto age appropriateness and making sure your resources are appropriate for the age of the client or child or young adult or adult that you are working with. Again, just like all other visuals and visual supports, the pictures and words presented on this board, they really take away from the power struggle of delivering the direction, talking like Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah. It gives a more concrete example of what we're actually asking for and what's expected of our learners, which is really what they need. It's providing predictability and understanding of what's going to happen next. It's not just someone talking at you or talking to you. It's this visual representation of, hey, you got to do this, and then you can have this. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop your comments below. I will drop a couple links in the comments below that will take you to awesome free resources where you can find the First Then visual board. You can find picture exchange cues. other visuals that you might be looking for. There are so many great resources online right now. But again, I will drop those down in the comments below for you. If you are interested in hearing more about visual schedules, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in today.